Before I begin, I'd like to preface this by saying the thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are based upon my experience with a Gotway Monster Pro. It is in no way indicative of the collective group of Monster Pros, but more so the percentages of Monster Pros and those other problematic hollow motor wheels. With that being said, I'd like to give a shout out to Free Motion for providing me with this wheel. If ever you find yourself wanting any form of PEVs, you can find Free Motion information in the description box below. Without further ado, let's get this video started.
What's up, YouTube and all you Kingston Gotway enthusiasts and all Shermanators? This is V coming at you to first wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, just in case I don't post before then. Also, excuse my ambiance, but I am hosting family over for the holidays, and it would seem that my patio is the quietest place in my house. No birds chirping, no dogs tearing at each other, no jibber-jabber from other people's. But without belaboring the point, I'm here to do a review on this much anticipated Gotway Monster Pro. Now, what can I say about the Monster Pro? I will just go over a couple of housekeeping things with this wheel. Upon unboxing, I was impressed. I've never actually ridden a Monster before, and I must say that the ride of this wheel is uber smooth. And when I say that, I really enjoyed the time that I had on it, which amounted to every bit of like 5.61 miles. But before I get into my riding aspects of this wheel, I want to talk about some of the key features that this wheel offers. Upon unboxing it, I basically took the panels apart, and I'm sort of glad I did, because some of the screws were loose, especially in the pegs. So I caution you guys, when you get your Monster, make sure that the screws are tight on the panel and on the foot pegs. Also, I noticed upon taking the panels off, at least the right panel, which would be you guys' left panel, that the motor wires on the Monster Pro is 12 gauge, which is a little bit thicker than what I guess the previous Monsters had. I believe they were 14. Don't quote me. I've never had a Monster before, never been this close to a Monster before, but I found the motor wire gauges to be 12, and that basically would allow for 20 amps to be used to charge this wheel. Also, unlike the X or the EX, depending on who you're talking to, the port cover is a lot better, a lot sturdier. It still used that rubber neck, which after a while I can see this being compromised because of wear and tear of opening and closing it to charge, or just it dries. Rubber tend to dry and crack and snap off. So again, that's one of these little issues that this can pose, but that's cool. You have the 2 charging ports and the USB slot for if you want to charge your phone or whatever the case may be. Also, I know I bitched and moaned about the Gotway X motor cutoff, or disengaging the motor in the handle. Well, I don't know what Gotway thought when they put this small button up top to disengage the wheel. As heavy as this wheel is, it comes in at 100 or so pounds. They decided to put this little button up top to disengage the wheel. Now, had it been somewhere in the middle, I can deal with it. But the way that this is, it is so far forward from the handle itself that it is rendered useless. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have large hands, so. Also, the on-off button, I noticed it's not somewhat metal, it's plastic or rubber. I'm sorry, it's more so a rubber covering. Again, I don't know, after a while that can be compromised, you know, because that's something that you're going to have to use every time you turn this on and off. That's rubber. In keeping with the design of the X, Gotway decided to keep this trolley handle, which is crappy. Unlike the X though, it sort of kind of is somewhat difficult to pull up, but nonetheless, you can pull it up. The top portion is still kind of flimsy. For a wheel that is 100 pounds, this, again, I don't know what Gotway was thinking when it did that. Also, it's a 24-inch wheel. Actually, the rim itself is 18 inches, and the diameter of the wheel, well, the width of the wheel is 2.75, so roughly it comes in under 24 inches, but we're going to round up for the purposes of this wheel and give it a 24-inch wheel base. Oh, I failed to mention another key feature I like about the Monster Pro, and that is that you have on top a display panel that will indicate the voltage, which is something different. It's not in the back, it's in the front where you can literally look down and see what your voltage is. That's another key feature about this wheel that I really like. Okay, the speakers, I do not know whether or not they're waterproof. However, the speakers are in the back and on top of the wheel. So if you find yourself caught in the rain, I don't know whether or not the speakers are waterproof or whether they will sustain any type of torrential rain coming down on them. I haven't delved that far into this wheel because I only took it out for, I want to say, maybe a half hour, if that long, before the issue I am about to talk to you about came about. Now, in going out to test the wheel, I got about 5.6 something miles maybe, and I noticed that the wheel started making a clicking sound. Unfortunately, I have a bearing issue. Less than 6 miles in, the bearing started knocking, in other words. So I will more than likely have either the motor replaced or the bearings replaced. Me personally, I'd rather have the motor replaced because in looking at how you would have to replace the bearings, I'd rather not have to go through that ordeal, because anyone that deals in bearings know that you need a press machine in order to properly seal the bearings. When you have, from what I have seen of a video Gotway has on the bearings or how they install the bearings, they use a hammer or hammer-like tool. Let me say that, a hammer-like tool. And anytime you deal with bearings, you run the risk of damaging a bearing by hammering it, as opposed to using a press that will press the ring at the same time, in other words. So if that makes any sense to some of you guys. But it would seem that the installation of these bearings, coupled with the bearings themselves, appear to be a commonplace issue with the new hollow motors that Gotway are installing in these wheels. Gotway's aware of the issues with the motors and have stopped production of the Monsters, the XN, and I think the RSS or the RSTs because of the issues that they're having. This particular wheel is the second gen. There was a first gen, I guess they tested elsewhere, and then the second gens came out here. And people were having issues, so they've stopped production on these wheels for, they say, 20 days. So come the end of January, they'll start production on their third generation on these motors. So hopefully, with that being said, they can correct the issues that have been plaguing some of these wheels, because to be honest, it's not a matter of if these wheels or these motors will go bad, it's when these motors will go bad, at least the ones that are currently out. Also, when I opened up the wheel, someone had asked what that particular board was, and I found that it was a sound board and an amplifier that is attached to the beep and the headlight and the tail light. But overall, outside of the issue with the motor, I did find that this wheel was not torquey. I felt every bit of the weight, unlike the Sherman. The Sherman is a heavy wheel. It's about 84 pounds, and this wheel has it by close to 20 pounds. But the Sherman, I could carve with no problem. This particular wheel, what I found in trying to carve or trying to maneuver it, and I know the bone of contention with me is I'm a lightweight, I'm a female, I've heard it all before. But when you know how to ride and you know how to maneuver, certain things come into play, and weight really isn't it. And what I mean by that, if I know how to throw my weight, no matter what, I can make something do what I need it to do. And not to say that I couldn't get this wheel to carve for me, I found it took a lot more effort in me trying to carve and move the wheel. I didn't feel that this wheel was torquey at all. And again, I was told it had a lot to do with my weight. Maybe, I don't know, because I'm not a heavy person. But it was very responsive. It didn't have that pick up and go. Yes, it has the 3,500 watt motor and the 36, or it says 4,000 watt battery, which I believe Gotway may have sort of kind of rounded up, but it gives an output of 3,600 watt. The jury's still out on that. But the fact of the matter is, I have the monopads on to give me that lean, and I found in giving it that lean, it responded, but it responded as I would expect a 100-pound wheel to respond. In closing, if ever there was a wheel that screamed not practical, it would be the Gotway Monster Pro. This being a behemoth of a wheel, coming in at 100 pounds, even though I did dry lift it standing up with my bum wrist, it's doable. However, I'm not going to go over the logistics of trying to move a heavy wheel from one place to another. But outside of that, this wheel, I did have fun in light of the bearing issues. I wound up just chucking it up and just spending more time on the wheel in spite of. And I must say, going through the different modes, the soft mode is the mode for me when in riding this wheel with the bearing issues, because the bearing noise sort of kind of subsided, but it's still there, not like it was going to go away. Wishful thinking. The medium mode was okay. The hard mode definitely is an for me. With my weight, it was just too rigid.
It's almost like Goldilocks and the Three Bears, the chairs, the hard, medium, and the just right. Soft mode for me was just right or spot on for me. I don't know if it was because of my weight or just, muscle knowing how to maneuver this heavy wheel, or just getting my body used to this heavy wheel. Also, the braking. I did the braking and I found no issues with the braking accelerating. Because this is a big wheel and it is by far the heaviest wheel we got going in the EUC community. It has a lot of surface space. I'm talking about on the side panels, and I found in riding without the pads, from knees to ankle, it was just rubbing, not really rubbing, it was sliding off of the smooth surface of the side panel. So it is in my opinion that side pads would be how should I say, you would be remiss in not at least trying side pads on the Monster Pro to get the full potential of it. It's like any other Gotway wheel that I've tested, to include the Sherman, where the pedal dips at tight turns. I experienced it. It's noticeable. Nothing concerning as far as I'm concerned. I've come to expect it with these wheels, with the pedal dips. What else can I say? The smooth ride of this wheel makes it feel like back in the day, like what a Cadillac must have felt like back in the 60s. It's just smooth. It's just, me never riding or have ridden a Monster before, quite impressed. Although I've had some experience in riding a heavy wheel, which was the Sherman, this by far, I felt every bit of the 100 pounds initially. When I got on to pull it, no, not to pull it, but to give it that go, yeah, I felt that the weight of the wheel. It's not nimble. It's definitely, it's responsive. I guess with time, for me, it will become nimble, but it took a lot of effort for me to really, maneuver and carve this wheel, to the point that I found my feet slipping off of the pegs. Also, riding it in a seated position was by far scary, but it was fun because the wheel sits so high. I can basically, lean in a lot more in turns, and the stopping, it didn't experience at all. Not like my experience with the Sherman, and not like my experience in trying it with the MSP. By far, this wheel is more fun in a seated position than, to me, possibly in a standing position. Again, I haven't spent a whole lot of time with the Monster to really get a feel for it because of the bearing issue, but if I had to categorize this wheel, this is a good wheel, don't get me wrong. Is it a wheel for me right now in my current indoctrination into these heavier wheels? No, I'm still into the more smaller, squirrely type wheels, like the MSS, the RS, MSX, those type wheels. Sherman, I have a love-hate relationship with the Sherman, but that's neither here nor there because we're talking about the Monster Pro. This is the Monster Pro platform today. But all in all, this is a cruising wheel. Yes, it is capable of going off-roading. However, I wouldn't take it off-roading. Bigger guys may want to take it off-roading. This particular tire, I wouldn't definitely take it off-road because it's not conducive for off-roading. It is a cruiser wheel. There are all types of wheels out there for all types of riders. And although, again, this is capable of going off-roading, I just wouldn't do it. I've seen a guy in California when I was out there on the tours, basically popped it looked to be like a 2-foot wall on a Monster. I think it was the V3, I don't remember, but he literally, I believe he may have had Clark pads. He literally bunny hopped a 2-foot wall. But again, this wheel has its market, and it's a fun wheel. Once Gotway iron out those issues that they're having with these hollow motors, I know not all of the motors are experiencing or will experience these. I don't know. It remains to be seen. But once they iron out some of those issues with the firmware, with the peg dipping, and the hollow motors, this is a contender with the Sherman. It really is. Barring the shell, we won't go into that, but outside of the shell being one of those that can easily be compromised if it falls, it will handle just as fine as the Sherman. So with that being said, guys, you know what time it is. Show your girl some love. Hit that like button, comment, subscribe, good, bad, or indifferent. So until next time, deuces.